views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to Bronxtalk. One of Mayor de Blasio's most aggressive initiatives has been the radical expansion of the city's universal pre-K programs. In 2 years, they've more than doubled 20,000 UPK seats in public schools, community-based organizations, and charter schools. This rapid growth has benefited thousands of families as children now have access to the vital educational and development opportunities that early childhood education can provide. But has it been a success across the board? Have we established appropriate facilities for all the UPK programs? Are some programs getting more support than others? And what about training? Can we train enough qualified teachers to fill the classroom needs? Hard questions, but important questions. Now that the program has become established throughout the city, it's time to answer them. We have two experts with us in the studio to provide analysis and commentary. If you'd like to comment about UPK, maybe your child is enrolled, or if you have questions, then our phones are open. You can call in at 718-960-7261, or send an email to us at bronxtalk@bronxnet.org, or post it on our Facebook page, and we'll read it on the air during a future edition of our program. For the here and now, the co-director of Policy and Advocacy of United Neighborhood Houses that operates excuse me, a number of UPK programs throughout the city. It is Gregory Brender. Welcome back to Bronxtalk.
Thanks so much for having me, Gary.
Nice to have you. And the Dean of the Monroe College School of Early Childhood Education, Dr. Ann Lillis. Dr. Lillis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Nice to have you with us. Gregory, let's start with you. Now, it occurred to me before you came on the show tonight that you were actually here 2 years ago when we started UPK in the city. So let's just step back, and we're going to talk about this policy profile and analysis that UNH put out. But before we get to the specifics, give me an overall about UPK. How has it worked? I mean, I know you and certainly Dr. Lillis are advocates of UPK. Has this been a good thing for the city? Is it working? Have we taken all those children and given them opportunities they might not have had?
The expansion of pre-K is absolutely a good thing for this city. To take a system that had been serving just a fraction of 4-year-olds to something that's really getting to nearly serving every 4-year-old in New York City, to saying that early education is not something just for a few children, but it is right, that something that we need to be providing for every child in New York City, is an incredibly important and historic step. And the settlement houses that are part of United Neighborhood Houses are thrilled to be part of it. That being said, it is not a complete work, because to ensure a truly high quality early childhood education system, it can't just start at 4 years old. It has to start younger. And for many working families who need a longer day than is provided in the pre-K programs, we need to be supporting childcare programs that can provide that longer day and with more hours that meet parents' work schedules.
We're going to break a lot of that down, and plus
Great.
some of the other items about who's getting and who's not getting, which I suggested in the opening as we go. Dr. Lillis, I'm going to ask you this question. You know this like you know your own name. Why is it important? I mean, we're taking a step further back. Why is it important for those 20,000 people to turn into 40 or 50,000 young people to get early childhood education?
Well, we know from the research, Gary, that children's brains grow the most rapidly in the first 5 years of life. Their vocabularies develop. All the skills they need to be successful in school actually start at birth. So we agree that we want all children to have access to high quality early care, starting from daycare and support for families of very young children up through pre-K and a great start for kindergarten.
Let's talk a little bit from a negative point of view. For a youngster who doesn't get UPK or this kind of attention and educational opportunity when they're young, what are the downfalls? What happens to them as they get older because they've missed out on this opportunity?
Well, one of the reasons that the mayor was so eager to launch the UPK program was to really have children level that playing field for kindergarten. So children who are coming into school that have a chance for UPK really gives them the language skills, the social development skills, the physical development skills to really be successful at school. Mm-hmm. For children who don't, the downside of that is they start kindergarten often very behind, particularly in the area of vocabulary. Mm-hmm. And we find that the long-term effects of that really can't be made up in school.
I'm going to add one more component, which I believe is somewhat overlooked, and that's the developmental aspects of play, and that if the kids play together, they'll learn to communicate better, they'll be better communicators. So I don't know if you want to add to that, or if I've just basically answered my own question, but it really is important. Not only, you say vocabulary is certainly a vital thing, but if they don't learn to interact, and some children, of course, a little slower at learning to speak and those kinds of things, but if they can communicate, then of course they'll be better off in the long term.
Sure, we agree. Social skill development is a major component of early childhood education.
Last question for you before we get back to Gregory and talk about this very interesting analysis. Monroe College, as I understand, started its pre-K program, early childhood education program, really right on time, whether they knew or didn't know that this was coming. But it really works out well that there was a great need for early childhood education teachers, and Monroe College now has added a early childhood education program. So just talk briefly about the program.
Sure. Well, I'm very excited to be the dean of the college. We began in 2011 with really just a handful of students. We graduated our first class 3 years ago of only 5. And I'm pleased to say in the last 2 years we've graduated 60 students.
60 students, and then they ultimately become teachers.
Exactly. So
hey, we need teachers, folks.
And you're absolutely right. Our having new teachers in an area where there's a boon and a tremendous need for new teachers has worked out very well.
Okay, we're gonna talk about the training in a moment. So, Mr. Brender, let's talk about this. This is it's unfortunately called, I'll put it on this side so you can see it, Losing the Best. This was a study put out by UNH. Talk to me about what your concerns are and why UNH put this out.
So this report is looking at the pre-K system, particularly as has it's provided in community-based organizations. The pre-K system delivery is varied. Some programs are in public school buildings and are taught by teachers in the public schools. Some are in community-based organizations. Some are in private and parochial schools. There's really a variety of different means by which the city funds and supports pre-K programs. And we had used the city's own data based on 2 widely respected metrics of quality in early childhood education, ECHRS and CLASS, and compared the scores of programs in community-based organizations as well as those in public schools, and found that in 9 out of 10 of the metrics that were used in those 2 systems, community-based organizations were actually outperforming the public schools.
Wow.
And we
It's
know
a revelation,
it's
right?
really, it is really, it shows the value of a community-based setting, a setting where there's multi-generational services available, where there's a history of providing early childhood education in the community. And that's why we're such a big proponent of these programs, because we know they do provide high quality. But these programs are themselves really at risk at this point, and that's because of huge disparities in the salaries of teachers, directors, and staff.
Oh, my goodness.
In early
And that
childhood
is going
programs.
to bridge into Dr. Lillis and what she works on. I want to just go back and talk about, I recall when you were on the program 2 years ago when this whole concept was introduced. One of the biggest questions was that I had was, here we are, I think it was approved sometime in the late spring, and they were saying like by September we were going to have tens of thousands of new children in school, that which meant we were going to need facility, we were going to need teachers and everything else. Did they do a good job? And along the way there have been rumors about, well, this place is not really outfitted for it. And I know in dialogues I have had that a lot of the questions were asked, hey, can you run a program here? Can you run a program here? Can you run a program here? Did they ultimately settle that down using community-based organizations, and we found enough places to run the programs?
Yes, and community-based organizations are absolutely essential to such a rapid expansion. There was not that space in public schools. They needed community-based organizations both for their expertise but also just for their space. This is an incredibly ambitious expansion, something that there were a lot of doubts about, and ultimately through partnerships with many organizations, they were able to find space and really expand the program.
So that aspect of it, and frankly my concerns and concerns of many others, has worked out, right?
I think so.
You think so? That we're going to lay that aside then. The whole notion of the Department of Education and community-based organizations and this relationship is an interesting one because they have really partnered public schools with community-based organizations elsewhere, not only in early childhood education. So they rely on community-based organizations for all kinds of supports for the schools, right?
And then it's a huge part of the improvements that are currently being made in New York City schools with the community schools, renewal schools.
So then why are we in a position now of you coming on and putting out this report and saying, gee whiz, we're not getting the support we need, that our people are not being treated properly, you maintain in terms of salary and everything else. There seems to be some disparity here.
It's really shocking that the de Blasio administration has allowed this disparity to continue. This has existed for a long time in previous administrations where the staff in community-based organizations, particularly those that were contracted with Administration for Children's Services, were paid at a very low rate. And we would hope that given its connection to the goals that this administration has had, both in expanding early childhood education, but also more generally to combat inequality, that they would want to see that those people who are providing care and education to the youngest New Yorkers are able to make ends meet, able to afford to live in the city.
Last question for you, and then we're going to bridge right into Dr. Lillis's expertise. I don't understand, and you can educate me on how we can have that discrepancy, because if a teacher is licensed or approved to be a teacher of students that are in a public school program, in a certified program, I mean, I don't know how we categorize it, then why is one being paid one thing and another being paid another? Is it a union matter?
I don't think there is an expert that understands it. I mean, we would.
Well, I'm far from that. I swear off that. I'm definitely not the expert.
You know, if you are teaching, even within the community-based organizations, based on how the city's paying, if you're teaching a 3-year-old now, you're getting paid less than if you're teaching a 4-year-old, even if you have the same certifications. This is not something we would do. We would not say, oh, in a public school, we value 6th grade teachers more than 5th grade teachers and 3rd grade teachers more than 4th grade teachers, so we're going to have different pay rates.
What's the response of the DOE when this comes up, or it hasn't come up formally yet?
This is something that we've been really trying to talk to the city and the DOE, ACS, and other organizations on, the other agencies on. The city has stated that this is a problem, but we have not yet seen action to...
Because if it was a matter of phone number, I'd give you the phone number. Dr. Lillis, so now let's talk about this whole process. So you educate them. Talk to me about, what they study, what do they get to, and then how they get approved potentially to work, whether it's in one of the 53 or 57 UNH settlement houses, or in a public school. What is that process?
Sure. So the qualifications to be a New York State certified teacher, for us, an early childhood teacher, which the license goes from birth to grade 2, the first step for initial certification is candidates have to earn a Bachelor of Science degree in an approved, state-approved program. So Monroe is really proud to have a New York State-approved program that gets our students on the path towards certification. So upon graduation and prior to
getting
that,
a bachelor's degree,
exactly,
right?
The New York State also at the present time requires 4 teaching exams. All candidates must pass all 4 to be certified. And it's interesting that at the same time that UPK was launched, the requirements for teacher certification became much more stringent. So the two things are happening simultaneously.
Is that a good thing or not a good thing?
Well,
I would think we'd want to have high standards, right?
I would agree. I think everyone in the teacher training field believes very, very strongly that the best thing we can do is to create the highest quality, best trained professionals there. We also appreciate and value outside agency approval. So New York State having exams that our students have to pass, the same as if they attended and graduated any other college, we think is a good thing.
Right. And on the other hand, of course, it means more difficulty getting people approved and certified. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back. I want to talk more about teacher training and support, and then, of course, try and sort some of this out and get some of these questions answered. We'll be right back. More Bronx Talk. Topic is UPK.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him going on to fascinate millions with his talent? 1 in 260,000. The odds of this born racer having 157 career top 10 finishes in NASCAR? 1 in 125 billion. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year? 1 in 195 million. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I'm NASCAR driver Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
Okay, back with you on Bronx Talk, topic UPK. We have two wonderful experts, Gregory Brender from UNH, United Neighborhood Houses, and Dr. Ann Lillis from Monroe College. So we were just talking about the certification, and during this short break, you were telling me this is really the crux of the issue, is getting your students and anybody else qualified through this process. Let's talk about the difficulties of getting them through the process.
Sure. So there are 4 exams required. 2 are required for any certification in New York State. One is an academic literacy test that measures your ability to do college-level reading and writing. And the other one is called Educating All Students, and that has to do with making sure our candidates are prepared to meet the diversity in all our classrooms.
Is there an issue with this, or this
well,
is,
the-
in
the-
other words, it's
the
hard to get to?
The ALST exam has been one that's been challenging across the state and challenging for our students. The other 2 exams are specific to early childhood educators. One is called the EdTPA. It's a national portfolio assessment exam that's very similar to the National Teacher Certification exam. Monroe College students have been very successful with that exam, scoring very highly. And then the last test is a multi-subject test where you really have to demonstrate your skill and knowledge in early childhood education. So all 4 of those, plus a bachelor's degree, is required for initial certification.
That is a heavy load, and in a way it's like, and I know Monroe College has a nursing program. Nobody wants to have an unqualified person stick a needle in their arm. We certainly don't want an unqualified person in front of a school. So does it make it difficult for you? And now I got the number here. You run 57 pre-K programs.
The member agencies in United Neighborhood Houses, yes.
Yes, I mean
Yes.
throughout the city. 2,300 pre-kindergarten students. Is it difficult to find teachers, and is this maybe one of the issues in this whole mix of why there's some discrepancy?
Oh, absolutely. This has been a crisis in New York's early childhood education system as teachers are leaving their programs because they simply can't afford to continue to work on those salaries. There was a survey conducted by our colleagues at the Daycare Council of New York of child care programs and found that 56% of programs were operating with certified teacher vacancies.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a shocking statistic, knowing that having a qualified teacher in the classroom is essential to the early childhood experience, essential to, the one shot you get at preparing kids to start school ready to learn.
What about curriculums? I mean, that I don't mean to lay that aside, because not that I have an answer for it, but that is certainly a serious thing. Has the city, in the process of developing all these UPK centers all throughout the city, have they standardized curriculums, or is frankly not standardizing the curriculums a good thing because teachers have a little more versatility in custom making a program for the children in front of them?
There are some standard curriculum requirements, but it's not as regimented as classes.
It's Common Core, maybe.
Yes.
For example.
And there are still opportunities for play within the day, for sort of a little more unstructured learning.
Frankly, I'm happy to hear that. So on that level, UNH is satisfied. It's still this discrepancy that you're disturbed by.
Yeah, the disparities in the salaries is a key priority for community-based organizations.
Can you give me some numbers? Like what
sure.
does somebody make? I mean, I got the report here. We can all
so
read the
like,
report
for
together.
example, if you're starting with an MA in Department of Education, you start at about $58,000.
Okay.
And if you're in a ACS program, which is also offering pre-K, you'd start at $40,000.
Really?
Yeah, and this disparity grows significantly over time. So if it's about making your career, with 20 years experience, you could be making $97,000 as a public school teacher, while a CBO teacher would be making about $51,000.
And that puts you at a distinct disadvantage to get some of Dr. Lillis's students. You frankly be a fool to require, to recommend that they work at a CBO, even if you knew some of the programs were quality programs.
There's incredible commitment among the staff, and I know that they enjoy working in CBOs. They have a passion for the work, but they have to be able to afford to live in this very expensive city, and they have to be treated fairly. And to have the kind of disrespect where they can be earning half of what a similarly qualified colleague across the street earns is simply unfair and wrong. And we're seeing the results of that in teachers leaving the system.
Talk to me about who the students are. Do you have a hard time finding students? Are students particularly eager? And again, I think the comparison in nursing is reasonable, because there's a big need for nurses, yet you, again, have to have qualified people.
I would say it's not easy for us to recruit qualified students, but the students who do come to us are extremely determined, are so eager and excited to join the early childhood field that they have been very successful in the academic world as well as in the field.
And it makes it fun for you to go to work every day, I
Every
assume.
single day.
And in terms of curriculum, since it's very interesting, of course, with Common Core, you can train students to teach at higher grades, and you know what they're going to be teaching. Is it difficult to train students without curriculums that are, as set maybe as they might be in the higher grades?
Well, Common Core is not a curriculum.
That is true.
Common Core is standards that students need to achieve by the end of the year. And the standards do not dictate a curriculum. Mm-hmm. So there really is flexibility in every school in how they approach the Common Core. But as far as young children are concerned, there are learning standards for pre-K, similar to the Common Core standards that we also train our teachers in, to make sure that they're prepared with the standards and expectations that 4-year-olds should achieve.
I suppose we should give you and certainly our viewers the opportunity to say, well, wait a minute, if you want a career in early childhood education, I mean, I know the phone number for Monroe is 800-55-Monroe. Anything else you want to say to somebody who might be watching and who would say, that would be a really good career for me?
Well, I would certainly encourage anybody who's interested in being an early childhood teacher. It is such a rewarding and wonderful career. If you're fortunate enough to land one of these DOE positions, it's also can be a very well-paid career. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we're excited about.
She gives him one of these.
No, not meant to. I support.
No, you're being honest and realistic.
I support his concern about the disparity. We believe strongly that all children deserve the best teachers, mm-hmm. which means well-trained and certified teachers. And if there's such a big disparity in salary, the inequity is going to be built into the system.
The whole idea of this inequity, I mentioned it very quickly. Is there a union issue here of some sort, a UFT issue, or is that not relevant in this situation?
There are different unions representing different parts of the system. The staffer in the ACS contracted programs are represented by DC 1707.
So that's different than the UFT.
It is a different.
So that's not really involved in this.
No.
Okay. So just before we run out of time, how do you see the resolve in this? I mean, it seems to me, and this would be if I was the judge and jury, mm-hmm. I would say let's standardize what anybody who is running a UPK program gets to earn as a salary. Is that a fair thing to say?
I would say actually for all early childhood educators, I would include those folks who are teaching children younger than 4 years old in child care programs that are not pre-K. And it's basically a matter of an investment from the city. They can make the investment. The city budget's being negotiated quite possibly as we speak.
All right.
At 9 o'clock.
We've made our, we've made our play here. Gregory Brender from UNH, thank you so much. Dr. Ann Lewis from Monroe College, thank you so much. Folks, if you have further questions or comments on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at BronxTalk@BronxNet.org, or put them on our Facebook page, and we'll read them on the air during a future edition of our program. We ask you to like Bronx Talk on Facebook, and you can check out our archives at BronxNet.org. You can find Bronx Talk on the lower right navigation bar. An important program note, we will be hosting a debate in the Democratic primary for the 13th Congressional District, which is the seat being vacated by Charles Rangel, and it will be broadcast during our regular times through the week of June 20. There are some weekend times as well. You can see on the screen. Saturday, June 18th, 3:30 and 9. Sunday the 19th, 11:30, 3 and 9. And then, as you can see, Monday through Friday during our regular times for Bronx Talk. All the candidates have been invited. There are 9 of them. So far, 7 have accepted. Should be a great program. Thank you to our producer, who does a great job, is Jayla Juberis. Our director tonight, Shirley Arietta. Helen is running around. Megan's on the camera. Justin's here. We have a cast of thousands. We'll see you next week.
Are we there yet?
Yep, we're here.
It's a short drive from your neighborhood to your naturehood. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.com.